In the studio, we have Matt Doocey, MP for Waimakariri. Kia ora, good morning, Matt. How are you?
Good morning, Kerry. Talking about movies, I went to the local Rangiora cinema last night with my son. School holidays.
Yep.
Went and saw the latest Karate Kid. It was great.
Was it?
Yeah.
Who's Mr. Miyagi?
Oh, Mr. Miyagi's passed in the movie, and
Okay.
it goes down to the next generation.
Ah, okay.
And it was quite... it made me reminisce a bit sitting with my son and thinking, well, I remember sitting with my dad watching the original.
That's Tom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tom Doocey, watching the original, man. I remember in the 80s. And I just like to say that the final showdown in the Karate Kid original movies, the guy who won, he cheated. He's not allowed to do what he did.
Well, I won't ruin the movie,
Okay.
but it's got some great suspense and karate fight scenes, as you would expect. And
As you would
look,
expect.
it was a great movie, and it was brilliant to be going to a local cinema. It's lucky we've got one here in Waimakariri.
Absolutely. We're lucky we've got a lot of things here in
Yeah.
Waimakariri. Hey, we're going to get into the local wrap-up with the local MP very, very soon. Just one question. Who's the prominent New Zealander who's been in front of the judge recently? Do you have any idea?
I don't actually, Kerry. I've seen that in the news myself. And look, sometimes as ministers we get a heads up under no surprises
Yep.
if it's relevant to our portfolios.
Yep.
But no, I'm not aware of who this person is. And quite rightly, if they've committed a crime, they should be going through the courts. And irrespective of your prominence in New Zealand, no one's above the law, and they should feel the full force of the law.
Don't have a problem with that, Matt Doocey. Let's have a bit of a look at the local wrap-up. There's been a bit of an announcement about a water reservoir catchment type thing in Cuss. Tell us about this.
Yeah, yesterday I joined Mark Patterson under his role as Minister for Rural Communities and Associate Minister for Regional Development as well. The government's announced $56 million into water storage across 3 different areas in Canterbury, Waimakariri being one. So Waimakariri got about $15 million of that announcement. It will have to be matched fund by the local farmers in the Waimakariri irrigation scheme. But what it does is providing a water reservoir, so to speak. It gives farmers, whatever type of farmers, including arable as in horticulture, just gives them more reliable water source and storage. And what we heard yesterday was, in fact, environmentally, having water more reliably available helps you be able to be more efficient in irrigation, whereas at the moment when you're not sure where it's going to come from next, it's more just in time, and sometimes you can over irrigate. Now with reliability it'll be a lot more efficient, a lot more environmental, and actually, quite frankly, when you look at the state of the economy nationally or locally, having our farmers do well will be great for our economy.
I noticed this morning that we've gone past the peak tractor period. I read that in a rural story this
Yes.
morning. Peak tractor, we're on the way down as far as tractors are
I
concerned.
must say, though, I was up at Field Days a couple of weeks ago. I did an announcement around rural mental health, and I joined the Prime Minister for an event, and boy, our exports have skyrocketed, which we need, whether it be red meat, whether it be horticulture, viticulture, aquaculture, wool. They're doing really well in a world stage, and that means bringing more money back to New Zealand, which then we can fund our health services, our police force, etc.
And we all need a decent injection of cash into that. Let's have a bit of a chat about the Woodend bypass.
Sure.
A bit of a catch-up. What's happening with that?
Yeah, I went along and saw the team recently, and I took AA Canterbury. They've been fighting the good fight with me over a number of years because, look, that stretch of road is one of the most unsafe roads in Canterbury. And actually, the Woodend bypass assessment showed it would drop the number of deaths and serious accidents from around 5.5 a year to 1 a year. And in Woodend alone, it would drop the number of cars from 21,000 to 8,000.
Going through the
So,
town?
Yeah, so it's going to be a big difference. So they were doing the geotech work,
Yep.
which is the start of the construction, which is really exciting. We're starting to see plans, which, the investment going into a flyover at Pine Acres and at the Ravenswood Pegasus roundabout as well.
Yep.
Look, long overdue, and I know the community's pretty excited.
It's been a bit of a generation or two in waiting, and
Yes.
thank goodness it is absolutely up and running. Now, we're playing a couple of ads here at Compass FM in regards to you visiting Hanmer Springs. For those that haven't listened to that particular commercial, why are you up there on Monday?
Yeah, I'm up there Monday and Gore on Tuesday. I'm presuming Hanmer Springs might be a bit more accessible for North Canterbury residents than Gore, but feel free to come to both if you like. Look, I'm responsible for rural health in my ministerial portfolios. I've always been of the view I need to get out of Wellington, of the beehive as a minister, and ensure I hear from people on the ground. So I'm doing a rural health roadshow, 12 locations. Started off in Levin, then Wairoa. On Monday I was... Tuesday I was in Wanaka, had 350 people at that meeting in Wanaka. Good public meeting. I love public meetings, as people in Waimakariri know. And then the next day we were in Oamaru. So I'm just getting out and about. So I'd encourage anyone to jump on my socials or have a look online. It's midday in Hanmer, in the main hall there. Come along and have your say. I'm interested to hear what's working well on the ground with rural health. We've made some announcements in Budget 2025, investing into a significant investment into rural after-hours care. But obviously there's still things to do, and that's the feedback I'm getting.
Are you going to have any money to offer for a helipad?
Yeah, not sure about that. I'll have a listen. Quite often those sort of investments are down to the local health system. But obviously, my ears to the ground, and we'll see. But ultimately, what we want people to do in rural health, there's a couple of key priorities under the rural health strategy. One is to bring more services closer to home, so people don't have to travel, because in rural communities we are challenged by geographical isolation. So the more we can do, and technology is a key part of that with telehealth. And then when the services people do need to travel for, how do we support them? And whether that be a helicopter, St John's, or the travel assistance services, that stuff we need to make sure we invest in.
No problem at all. Just briefly back to the Woodian bypass. That may or may not be a toll road, right?
Yes.
So there could be locals paying money for using that particular
That's
road.
right.
Could, and we'll use the word could.
Yeah.
What about Canterbury regional fuel tax that I heard you talking about 3 or 4 weeks ago? That's another sort of tax on ratepayers and taxpayers in Waimakariri.
Very much so. That concerns me. Basically,
where did you get that information that it's possible?
Yeah. So what happened? I was approached to make a comment that ECAN had decided. Interestingly, just before they're going into a local body election, that they would kick off another report into using the existing track line for commuter, whether that be from Rolleston into Christchurch or Rangiora here. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm a big proponent of public transport. We need to look at what's called MRT, with mass rapid transit, whether that be light rail or bus. But just saying you're going to use the main trunk line, we've done all that before, and there's a couple of reasons it's proven that it won't work. One is that people's workplaces have changed significantly after the earthquakes. A lot more people working in the airport campus area, Hornby, so just been taken into the old Addington station, is not going to work. And secondly, the freight carriages are not reliable enough to give people using it for passenger certainty. There's only a small passing window, and you could be stuck at that for a long period, and people would give up and want to jump back in their cars. So, look, we've been there before, so I pushed back on it. I called it pie in the sky. You'd ask what ECAN's been doing if they sit there for 3 years in their term and just before an election kick off another report. But what was quite outstanding is one of the ECAN councillors came out in the response to how it would be funded to say that they were within their rights and discussing a Canterbury fuel tax, a tax on petrol to pay for that project. And I think actually that should have been raised more with local residents, because no one knew that was happening. And I'd encourage everyone, this is your time to have your say, whether it be local government this year or central government next year. For me, it's now the time when you're picking who you're going to vote for, to ask them, are they going to advocate for an extra tax on your petrol? And I'd say we shouldn't have that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not going to argue with that there, Matt, but quite frankly, I'm going to push back a wee bit and say that all politicians in their last term usually go for something nice and sweet to make people remember it. So that's normal, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. A review of a review that's been proved flawed, I think we could do better. That's all I'm saying. Look, I've got certain views around ECAN, and I do question sometimes why we've got 4 councils: Christchurch, Waimakariri, and Selwyn, and a regional council. Does seem a lot of local government, and if we truly want to drive down our rates, well, maybe there's some efficiencies there about whether our territorial councils take over regional council functions.
Well, time will tell on that one there. Very briefly, Matt, because we have carried on for a wee while. The new 5-year Suicide Prevention Action Plan. You've announced this very, very recently.
Yeah, look.
Tell us a wee bit about this.
An area that impacts on every Kiwi's life.
My family,
Yeah.
it's just horrendous.
It is. And it's when you start talking about it like now, Kerry, when people like yourselves and myself all say, look, we've been impacted, and every Kiwi has been impacted, whether their family, their friends, their workplace. So, look, we've got to do better, and we have stubbornly high suicide rates in New Zealand.
Over 600 a year.
And so, last year provisional about 617. So look, we inherited the last Suicide Prevention Action Plan from the last government. It was legislated for a refresh and a new direction. Look, the initiatives that have been proven to work in the existing plan we've rolled over. We've also added 21 new health-led actions and 13 new cross-government actions. That's saying corrections, Ministry of Social Development, police, and I really want to acknowledge my ministerial colleagues who all got round to support it, right? It was $20 million. We've found an extra $16 million, so that goes up considerably as well. And ultimately what the feedback, we went out and did the public consultation and got over 400 submissions. People said the last plan, although had some good initiatives, was poorly targeted, not clear about roles and responsibility, accountabilities and timeframes. So we've made sure it maps out all those things, roles and responsibilities, timeframes and accountabilities. And look, just to give you an insight to one key area, what we do know sadly with some suicide, it can be same-day crisis. And if we can get people through that crisis, we know that they will take a different course of action. So we're doing a lot more in crisis response. Clearly, though, we don't want to wait for people to get into crisis.
Absolutely,
so we're doing a lot more preventative work as well. So, look, it's something that's pretty somber reading, but very important to do.
And considering that it does affect literally everyone in this wonderful country that we are in. Matt Doocey, MP for Waimakariri. Appreciate you coming in to Compass FM.
Thank you, Kerry.
Catch you again next month.
Yeah.